Dear friends, this is episode number 71 of the Limitation Act. We are dealing with Articles 64 and 65 as well as adverse possession. I have cited several decisions. We will continue that process. And today, at first, I will cite one Kerala decision 2014 1 KHC 319. Rajamma versus Ammani Amma and another 2014 1 KHC 319. What is held is that there must be pleading as to when the defendant came into possession and he started adverse possession. There must be evidence also. The defendants were not entering into the witness box to prove adverse possession or the plain schedule properties. The court below went in error in finding that the defendants have prescribed title by adverse possession. The finding is that there must be pleading and proof. In the course of that, it said that the defendants should have adduced evidence. That depends on the facts and circumstances of each case. If there is cogent evidence, otherwise, even if the defendant is not examined, that by itself is not a ground to reject the case of adverse possession. It depends on facts. It is a question of fact to be proved in each case. Next is adverse possession against a Hindu widow. What is a reversioner's right? What is a reversioner's right? You may see Article 65. Explanation. For the purpose of this article, where the suit is by a remainder man, a reversioner, within brackets other than a landlord, or a devisee, the possession of the defendant shall be deemed to become adverse only when the estate of the remainder man, reversioner, or devisee, as the case may be, falls into possession. 12 years when the possession of the defendant becomes adverse. Same thing. But that adverse possession will start from the date when the estate of the remainder man, reversioner, or devisee falls into his possession. Till then, even if the person in adverse possession was in possession for more than 12 years, that will not confer on him any right. Why? Because it is a limited estate. I said in some of the previous episodes that under the pristine Hindu law, the widow was entitled only originally to receive maintenance out of the joint family funds. 1936, for the first time, a widow was given the right to possess property in lieu of her maintenance. That right became full right by Section 14 of the Hindu Succession Act 1956. So till then, it was only an inchoate right. She could not validly transfer the property, and therefore she has no saleable interest, and therefore no adverse possession can be claimed against her. Why? Because otherwise what will happen? A widow came into possession of the property, young widow. After her death, it will revert to the reversioner. She set up somebody, her relative, to claim adverse possession. And the reversioner will get right only on the death of this widow. By that time, 12 years, 30 years may be over. But that person in possession will not prescribe title by adverse possession then. Then clause B, where the suit is by a Hindu or Muslim entitled to possession of immoral property on the death of a Hindu or Muslim female, the possession of the defendant shall be deemed to become adverse only when the female dies. Say remainder man, reversioner, a specific clause is there, clause A. Even otherwise, if a right accrues on the death of that Hindu or Muslim woman, then the possession of the defendant would become adverse start from the date of the death of the widow of the Hindu or Muslim lady. Now you may also note that Article 65 explanation clause A was almost the same as Article 140 of the 1908 Act, and clause B was Article 141 of the 1908 Act. So 1908 Act, 1963 Act, Articles 142, 140, 141, 137 all merged together, and with some modifications Article 65 has been enacted. So with this in background, let us see the decisions. You may see AIR 1969 Supreme Court 204, Ram Kristo Mandal, Ram Kristo, Kristo Mandal versus Dhan Kisto Mandal, Dhan DHAN Kisto Mandal. The point held there is that a person, paragraph 11, Article 141 of the 1908 Act, a person who has been in adverse possession for 12 years or more of property inherited by a widow from her husband by an act or omission on her part, he is not entitled on that ground to hold it adversely as against the next reversioners on the death of such widow. It is very clear, long sentence. Let us see again. A person who has been in adverse possession. So he was claiming adverse possession for more than 12 years. Which property? Inherited by a widow from her husband, and that third party came into possession by an act or omission on the part of the widow. Such person is not entitled on that ground to hold it adversely as against the next reversioners on the death of such widow. Time starts only from the death of that widow. The next reversioner is entitled to recover possession of the property if it is immobile within 12 years from the widow's death under Article 141. This rule does not rest entirely on Article 141, but is in accord with the principles of Hindu law and the general principle that as the right of a reversioner is in the nature of space successionis, and he does not trace his title through or from the widow, it would be manifestly unjust if he is to lose his right by the negligence or sufferance of the widow. Space successionis, that is a Latin maxim, that is a mere chance to succeed. Section 6 of the Transfer of Property Act says that a mere chance of succession cannot be transferred. It cannot be a subject matter of transfer. Section 6, a particular clause is there. There are several clauses. 6. Space succession is, that is a mere chance of succession, cannot be transferred. See, A is the owner of the property. B is his son. On the death of A, B may inherit the property, may. Even before the death of that man and before inheritance, the son has no transferable right. Suppose the son has transferred, that will be not valid. Not valid. And in this decision, towards the end of paragraph 11, reference is made to AER 1953 Supreme Court 125. Kalipada Chakravarti versus Palani Bala Devi. AER 1953 Supreme Court 125. Mullah's Hindu Law 13th edition page 233 was also referred and cited with approval. Next decision is 2019 4 SEC 592. 592 Gopalakrishna versus Narayana Gowda. Gopalakrishna versus Narayana Gowda. That is by Justice Ashok Bhushan and Justice K.M. Joseph. Justice Ashok Bhushan from Allahabad. He was the Chief Justice in Kerala, a very popular Chief Justice. And Justice K.M. Joseph was a judge from Kerala High Court. And in one of the episodes I have mentioned about Justice K.K. Mathew, and mention was made about his dissenting judgments in the High Court as well as Supreme Court. Justice K.M. Joseph is the son of Justice K.K. Mathew. Very eminent judge. And at the time when I was a judge, he was here. He was just 2 months, 3 months senior to me. He was the most learned judge among 32 of us. Most learned. And here, Article 140 and 141 of the 1908 Act was referred to. Period of limitation period will not start from the date of transfer of the property made by the widow, and the reversioners can ignore such transfer unless the transfer is made for permissible reasons such as necessity or interest of the estate. A transfer made by a widow for necessity, that is recognized, otherwise it can be ignored, it can be set aside. Here in this decision, paragraph 28, 27 and 28, Sithamma was the widow. The property was alienated by Sithamma, the widow of Ramana, in favor of her brother Srinivas Rao in the year 1913. Undoubtedly, it was open to the reversioner to proceed on the basis that such alienation does not bind her. Thereafter, 1938, Sithamma passed away, and even proceeding on the basis of so-and-so, the granddaughter of Ramanna was a reversioner, her estate in expectancy became vested in her. Upon the death of Ramanna's widow in 1938, it was open to the reversioner to ignore the sale deed executed by the widow as not binding on her, and she could file a suit for recovery of possession. The law clearly provided for a period of 12 years, and the period of limitation started with the death of the limited owner, namely the widow, in 1938. The time started ticking with the passing away of the widow in 1938. The period of limitation being 12 years, it ran out in 1950. With the running of the period of limitation prescribed under the Limitation Act, Article 140 and 141, the very right of the alleged reversioner also came to an end. Thus, when she executed the sale in 1955 in favor of the appellants, she could not have conveyed any right, because that is, time has gone, expired. That apart, even for a moment, proceeding on the basis that the period of limitation would start from 12 years from 55 when the sale deed was executed, even then the period was over. Yes, this is the decision of the Supreme Court on that point. Reversioner. Next heading, permissive possession. whether it would become adverse. There are several permissive possessions. We have seen 84 Supreme Court also, licensee. License is a permission, lease is a permission, mortgage also a contractual relationship. Though those are all regulated by statutes, it is coming into possession in a manner which is known to law. Some derivative right, not absolute right, or not the right of a trespasser. It is under a color of title. That is a difference. A is the owner, B trespasses upon the property, B has no right. B trespasses upon the property to the knowledge of A, open, notorious, continuous. After 12 years, the B prescribes title by adverse possession, A's right is extinguished under section 27 and no suit can be filed by A for recovery of possession thereafter. But take a case where A index B into possession under some arrangement, lease, license or some other permission or contract or agreement, whatever it is. B comes into possession of the property by way of a grant of permission that is under a different color. That possession is never adverse. And to convert it into adverse possession, it is possible in certain circumstances. On the facts of each case, it has to be decided. That person has to shed, if possible, the character of the derivative title and start possessing adverse to the real owner. Then only limitation starts against the real owner. Otherwise, his possession is always considered as permissive. Let us see this decision. 1972 4 SEC 274. AER citation, AER 1971 Supreme Court 996. 3 judges, G.K. Mitter, Justice G.K. Mitter, Justice K.S. Hegde, Justice Jagan Mohan Reddy. State Bank of Travancore versus Arvindan Kunju Panikar and others. Article 65 of the Limitation Act. A permissive possession cannot be converted into an adverse possession. Normally. Para 9. A permissive possession cannot be converted into an adverse possession unless it is proved that the person in possession asserted an adverse title to the property to the knowledge of the true owner for a period of 12 years or more. There is no evidence to show that either so and so asserted any hostile title to the suit property to the knowledge of the true owners at any time before the present suit. So, it was a permissive possession. It can be converted into adverse possession only when that color of permission is abandoned, is shed. He avoids that relationship, starts possession adversely with all the incidents of adverse possession. Then it may be possible, and that is a matter to be proved on the facts of each case. Depends on the facts, depends on the proof. Next, ILR 1985 1 Kerala 573. Article 65. A sale deed under a prior hypothecation bond, subsequent agreement to retain possession, etc., the vendor cannot claim adverse possession. It is clear from para 6. The suit is instituted subsequent to the coming into force of the Limitation Act 1963. Counsel for the appellant pointed out, and rightly according to me, that the relevant article applicable is Article 65. In the present case, the plaintiff had initially title to the property under Exhibit A1. Under Article 65, the period of limitation for a suit for possession of immovable property based on title is 12 years from the date when the possession of the defendant becomes adverse. Counsel for the respondent, relying on the decision so and so, etc., contended that weighty contention would have merited consideration if other factors had not intervened. The present case is not a simple one as in the case of ILR 11 Calcutta, etc. The facts narrated above demonstrate how there have been other intervening factors. It is not enough that the vendor in possession even after the sale. A sale is there, the vendor continues in possession. His possession must be adverse to the real owner. This requirement of possession being adverse has been given due emphasis in judicial decisions. The necessary animus to possess a property adverse to the real owner would be non-existent if the possession is permissive. Similar would be the case if the existence of other factors extinguishes the requisite animus to possess adversely. If possession of the vendor would not be adverse. In a way, the lower appellate court also has adverted to the significance of such a plea. That was a case where it was alleged that the parties have subsequently entered into an agreement whereby possession of the property has been allowed to be retained by the vendors until the mortgage liability is discharged. When the agreement is found to be established, that would have ordinarily been sufficient to repel the plea of adverse possession, because it is referable to a valid contract under a permission. Therefore, it is not possible. Then, next heading, alienation by co-parceners of undivided interest. Co-parcenery, I have mentioned, that is, say joint family, there is joint family. Joint family consists of males and females. Karta is the head, manager. That is what is called Midakshara. It is available in southern India, Karnataka, Kerala, some other parts of India. In Bengal it is Deyabhaga. I do not know what are the incidents of succession, etc. in Deyabhaga. In a Midakshara joint family, there will be several members, males as well as females. All of them constitute members of the joint family. Out of the joint family members, the males constitute a unit. That is what is called co-parcenery. Co-parcenery. By birth, each male member gets a share. Females do not. Females were never members of the Hindu co-parcenery under the Hindu Midakshara law. Never. But by certain amendments after the Hindu Succession Act 1956, by certain amendments, certain states provided that the females will have that right of a right by birth and being member of the co-parcenery. That is separate, special rights. Now, under the 2005 Hindu Succession Amendment, females are also co-parceners. They are entitled to a right by birth. It is an excellent provision by which the females get a right by birth in the joint family property. She becomes a co-parcener. What is the right of the co-parcener? Undivided interest. Whether the co-parcener can alienate it? Normally not. What happens if a co-parcener alienates and that stranger comes into possession? Whether his possession would become adverse, etc. These are the questions to be considered. Now, dear friends, you take Hindu law by Mulla. There are two authoritative texts, Mulla and Main. Main is difficult, 2 volumes. Take Mulla on Hindu law, that will be easier. And read when you get time, so that to understand certain things in various acts, it is also necessary to understand the past. For example, when you study the Hindu Succession Act 2005 amendment, see, necessarily you have to know all the events which took place in the past, the legislations, the change brought out, what is a Midakshara co-personery, and all those things you have to understand. So that as a first step, take Hindu law, Mulla, start reading. Midakshara heading is there, Midakshara co-personery, succession. This is little bit difficult. When it comes to succession, sometimes it is difficult. There is Stridhana property. See, under the pristine Hindu law, see, this is out of our subject, but still I thought that I would say something to the young friends. Under the pristine Hindu law, a property got by a female, either as presents at the time of her marriage or acquired by her skill, it is her Stridhana property. Stridhana, usually what we understand by Stridhana is dowry. Stridhana under the Hindu law is not dowry. It is the dhana of Stri. So all these are her Stridhan property. What happens to the Stridhan's property after the death of this female? It does not go to the male members. It goes to her daughters. And the female line it goes. And there are various decisions on that aspect. What constitutes Stridhan? And in 1912, there is a decision by the Privy Council. Yajnavalkya's expansion of what is Stridhan is there. Yajnavalkya is an exponent of Midakshara law. He has expanded and included everything which a Hindu widow gets as her Stridhan property. And that was set aside in 1912 by the Privy Council. See, these are all interesting aspects. And in one part of, I do not remember which part of India, even a maid servant could claim right in the property. Not maid servant, I committed a mistake. A concubine, not maid servant. Sorry, very sorry. A concubine could claim right in the property. Those are all hundreds of years back. Now we will continue with this heading, alienation by co-partners, in the next episode. Thank you.